breakdown of each company, its dividend yield, dividend per share, how long it's paid a dividend for, and how long it's raised the dividend for, just after this short section on my portfolio itself. So this is the next mission for my portfolio, to get the list of Dividend Titans up to date for 2023. And the Dividend Titans are at the moment 25 US stocks and 5 Canadian stocks that have not missed a dividend payment in the last 100 years. So I haven't updated this since 2021, and between then and now there's 4 new positions to add in. These are Simon's First National, GATX, Johnson Controls International, and Timken. So although they haven't missed a dividend payment in 100 years, that doesn't mean that they've raised the dividend every year for 100 years. But when I'm going down through the list very quickly, I will add in how many years of consecutive dividend raises all these companies have. There is quite a few of them I recognize from the Dividend Kings, which is here. And that's a list of stocks that have consecutively raised dividends for at least the last 50 years. So because I've already added in the new positions, what I'm doing year after year is, as I update the list, some stocks will make it from year to year, and there will be some who fall out and there will be some new additions. But every year I export everything out of the portfolio just to balance it all back to zero, and then all the money I invest into this pie is spread out evenly in the beginning. And then as time goes on and the values of each company rise and fall, I will then do self-balancing, which will give more money to the stocks that have gone down than to the stocks that have gone up, to try to keep an equal amount of money distributed between each stock. So on top of every stock in the portfolio having a position in the A to Z list down here, which I'm trying to get everyone to €100, any of the stocks who make the cut for these more VIP lists, they will receive extra every year. So the first thing I'll do is I'll get all of these stocks exported out of this pie. So now the pie is empty and I have about €33 that I can invest into it. So I'll put that in now to get the ball rolling, like so. And that will add 4 new positions to my portfolio when the markets open at about 2:30 p.m. here. So I'll fly through the list from top to bottom, and I'll tell you the ticker symbol, the dividend yield, and the years of consecutive dividend raises up until this year. The first one is Johnson & Johnson, ticker symbol JNJ. It's a biotechnology and drugs company. The exact amount of years it's been paying consecutively was tough to find. The history on its own website went back to 1972. But they have raised the dividend consecutively for 62 years in a row. Currently costs $156 a share. It pays $1.19 a share 4 times a year, and the dividend yield is currently 3%. Number 2 is Coca Cola. Ticker symbol is KO. It's been paying dividends for 103 years in a row, and it's raised its dividend every year for the last 63 years in a row. Its current dividend yield is about 3.5%. It costs about $54 a share at the moment, and it pays 46 cents per share 4 times a year. It's a non-alcoholic beverages company. Next is 3M. Ticker symbol is MMM. This is a company that makes construction supplies and fixtures. It's been paying dividends for 107 years in a row. It's raised its dividend for 66 years in a row. Currently costs $90 a share. It pays $1.50 4 times a year. And it has a nice dividend yield at the moment of 6.7%. Then we have Exxonmobil. Ticker symbol is XOM. This is an oil and gas company. It's paid dividends for the last 141 years in a row. It's raised the dividend for the last 40 years in a row. Currently costs $111 a share. It pays 91 cents per share 4 times a year. And its current dividend yield is about 3.3%. Then we have Proctor Gamble. Ticker symbol is PG. They make personal and household products. You've probably heard of them. They've been paying dividends for the last 131 years in a row. They've raised the dividends for the last 66 consecutive years. Currently costs about $146 a share. It pays 94 cents 4 times a year. And the current dividend yield is about 2.6%. Next is the Bank of Montreal. This is one of the Canadian stocks in the list. Ticker symbol is BMO. It's been paying dividends for 193 years in a row. It's raised its dividend every year for the last 9 years in a row. Currently costs $82 per share. It pays $1.47 4 times a year. And the current dividend yield is about 5.2%. Then we have another Canadian bank with a long history, the Bank of Nova Scotia. Ticker symbol is BNS. It's paid dividends for the last 190 years in a row. It's increased its dividend for the last 6 years in a row. Currently costs $44 per share. It pays 77 cents 4 times a year. And that's a dividend yield of a nice 7% at the moment. Next on the list is Chubb. ticker symbol CB. It's a financial company, specifically in insurance. It's been paying dividends for 121 years in a row. It's raised its dividends for the last 29 years in a row. One share costs $216 at the moment. It pays 86 cents per share 4 times a year, and the current dividend yield is about 1.4%. Then we have Colgate Palmolive. Ticker symbol is CL. This is another personal and household products company. It's been paying dividends for 128 years in a row. It's raised its dividend every year for the last 60 years in a row. Currently costs 71 cents a share. It pays 48 cents per share 4 times a year, and that's a current yield of about 2.7%. Then we have Eli Lilly and Company. Ticker symbol is LLY. This is another biotech and drug stock. It's doing very well at the moment. They've paid dividends for the last 138 years in a row. They've raised the dividends for the last 9 years in a row. Currently cost about $608 per share. It pays $1.13 4 times a year. And because of how well it's doing, the dividend yield is pretty low at less than 1%. Next on the list is International Business Machines. Ticker symbol is IBM. It's paid dividends for the last 107 years in a row. It's raised the dividend every year for the last 27 years. Currently costs $140 a share. It pays $1.66 4 times a year, and that's a dividend yield close to 5%, about 4.8. It's a tech company in the computer services industry. Next is Consolidated Edison. Ticker symbol is ED. It's an electric utilities company. It's been paying dividends for 138 years in a row. It's raised the dividends for the last 49 years in a row. So if it does it for one more year, it will become a dividend king. Currently costs $88 a share. It pays 81 cents 4 times a year. And its current dividend yield is about 3.5%. Next is Union Pacific stock. Ticker symbol is UNP. It's in the transportation sector, specifically in railroads. It's paid a dividend for the last 123 years in a row. It's raised its dividend for the last 16 years in a row. Currently costs $211 a share. It pays $1.30 4 times a year, and that's a current dividend yield of about 2.5%. Next, we have PPG Industries. Ticker symbol is PPG. It's a chemical company, specifically paints and coatings. It's paid a dividend for the last 124 years in a row. It's raised its dividend for the last 51 consecutive years, so it's a dividend king. Currently costs $131 a share. It pays 65 cents 4 times a year, and it's a current dividend yield of about 2%. Now this one, General Mills, the thing is, they stopped their dividend briefly in 2020, so technically shouldn't be on this list, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because they started paying a dividend in 1898. But then next year, when I'm remaking the list for 2024, I'll remove General Mills from it. So the ticker symbol is GIS. It did have the long dividend streak and dividend raise history before stopping it in 2020. Currently pays 59 cents a share. The price per share is $63 at the moment, on the way down. And the current dividend yield is 3.7%. Next is the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. Ticker symbol is CM. It's paid a dividend for the last 155 years in a row. It's raised its dividend every year for the last 25 years or more. The exact number eludes me, but it is a dividend aristocrat. One share costs $38 at the moment. It pays 64 cents 4 times a year, and that's a nice dividend yield of about 6.7%. Next, we have Stanley Black & Decker stock. Ticker symbol is SWK. It's paid a dividend every year for the last 146 years. It's raised its dividend for 55 years in a row, so it's a dividend king. Currently costs $83 a share. It pays 81 cents per share 4 times a year, and the current dividend yield is about 4%. Next is Toronto Dominion Bank. Ticker symbol is TD. It's paid dividends for the last 165 years in a row. It's raised its dividend for at least the last 25 years in a row. The exact number eludes me again. Currently costs $59 a share. It pays 70 cents per share 4 times a year, and the current dividend yield is 4.5%. Then we have American Electric Power stock. Ticker symbol is AEP. It's been paying dividends for 123 years in a row. It's raised the dividends for 13 consecutive years. Currently costs $75 per share. It pays 83 cents per share 4 times a year, and it's a dividend yield of about 4.5% at the moment. Next we have UGI stock. It's a natural gas company. Ticker symbol is UGI. It's paid dividends for the last 138 years in a row. It's raised its dividends for the last 35 years in a row, making it a dividend aristocrat. Currently costs $22 a share. It pays 38 cents 4 times a year, and it has a current dividend yield of a nice 7%. Next we have DuPont stock. Ticker symbol is DD. It's another biotech stock. It's paid dividends for the last 119 years in a row. It's only raised its dividends consecutively for the last 2 years. Currently costs $75 a share. It pays 36 cents per share, so it's a pretty low dividend yield of 1.9%. Next is Church & Dwight Company. Ticker symbol is CHD. They've been paying dividends for the last 122 years in a row. They've raised the dividends for 25 consecutive years, making them a dividend aristocrat. Currently costs $88 per share, pays 27 cents per share 4 times a year, and that's a current dividend yield of about 1.2%. Then we have GATX stock. Ticker symbol is GATX. It's a rental and leasing company. It's paid a dividend every year for the last 104 years. It's raised its dividend every year for the last 13 years. Currently costs $110 per share. It pays 55 cents per share per quarter, and that's a dividend yield of about 2%. Next we have Edison International. Ticker symbol is EIX. It's another electric utility company. It's been paying dividends every year for the last 113 years. It's raised its dividend every year for the last 20 years. Currently costs about $66 a share, pays 74 cents per share 4 times a year, and that's a dividend yield of about 4.5%. Next we have Johnson Controls International. Ticker symbol is JCI. It's paid a dividend for the last 136 years in a row. It's a capital goods company. It makes air conditioning, refrigeration, air conditioning systems. It's actually headquartered in Cork in Ireland, so go on up the lads. It's only raised its dividend for the last 3 years in a row. Currently costs about $53 a share, pays 37 cents per share 4 times a year, and that's a dividend yield of about 2.8%. The next stock is Timken. Ticker symbol TKR. It's paid dividends for the last 101 years in a row. It's raised its dividend every year for the last 9 years. It's another capital goods stock. It makes industrial bearings, motion devices. Currently costs about $74 per share, pays 33 cents a share 4 times a year, and that's a dividend yield of about 1.7%. Fourth from the end, we have BCE stock. Ticker symbol is BCE. It's a communications company in Canada. It's been paying dividends every year for the last 142 years. It's raised its dividends for the last 25 years or more, making it a dividend aristocrat. Currently costs $38 per share, pays 72 cents 4 times a year, and that's a high dividend yield of 7.5%. Third from the end, we have Simmons First National. Ticker symbol SFNC. It's paid dividends for the last 113 years in a row. It's raised its dividend every year for the last 11 years. Currently costs $16 a share. It pays 20 cents per share 4 times a year, and that's a nice dividend yield of about 4.8%. And I saved the best for second last. York Water, ticker symbol YORW. It's paid dividends every year for the last 206 years. It's raised its dividend every year for the last 26 years, making it a dividend aristocrat. It's a water utility company. Currently costs about $37 per share. It pays 20 cents a share 4 times a year, and that's a dividend yield of about 2%. And last but not least, National Fuel Gas. Ticker symbol is NFG. It's paid dividends every year for the last 120 years. It's raised its dividend for the last 52 consecutive years, so it's a dividend king. Currently costs $55 a share. It pays 49 cents per share 4 times a year, and that's a nice dividend yield of 3.5%. So that's all for the Dividend Titans of 2023, and fair play to you if you're still here. It was quite a long video, took all day to make, but I hope that you find some hidden gems amongst this pile.